When schools get more serious about standards, they have to close achievement gaps. That includes gaps between regular students and students with learning disabilities. One strategy for doing this overlaps with attempts to keep students more engaged and motivated through exposure to the arts. Our guest is with an organization that does this through programs in the community and in schools. It's a state organization on the arts and disability known as VSA Massachusetts. We'd like to welcome the education manager, Nicole Agois. Hurel. Thank you very much for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
Tell us about the organization, because this has been around for 30 years or so, right?
Our affiliate in Massachusetts has been around for 30 years. The international organization has been around since 1974. We were founded by Jean Kennedy Smith, and the mission of the organization is to promote a society in which people with disabilities can access and enjoy the arts.
And of course the VSA is from Very Special Arts, I imagine.
Yes, we used to be called Very Special Arts, and we dropped the name a while ago just to celebrate the accomplishments of people with disabilities. And we dropped the arts last year, so now we're just called as VSA, the International Organization on Arts and Disability.
Tell me how you get started in this yourself, because you have the professional musician training in your background, but you also have this kind of work as well.
Yes, it was all by pure coincidence. I am from Peru originally, and when I would go home to visit, my mother was involved in the Peruvian affiliate of VSA Arts there. And I began just observing in the classroom and working with them. And the arts started to come in naturally when the teachers were planning activities and they were asking me about my experience with the arts. And we started to do some integration activities, which had really great results. So as soon as I was back in Boston, I contacted the VSA office, and that's how I got started.
Did you get some particular satisfaction from working with these children who had these disabilities?
Oh, it was incredibly rewarding. I got to see what it really means to work as a group and when everybody's strengths are needed. So there were some students who were nonverbal, but they were very good with their hands and with crafts, so they were taking care of those sides of things in the classroom, where some students had wonderful memory, so they were bringing in those skills. So we were able to put together productions using every single kid's abilities to the fullest.
Now, you've done some work already, at least your organization has done work with artists working in the schools in Boston. I understand one of these was in Rosendale Summer School?
Yes.
Tell me about that.
We were there about 3 years ago. The school wanted to become an arts-integrated school. They have separate classrooms, so we were working in this one particular classroom. Most of the students had language-based learning disabilities.
Now, when you say separate, do you mean the students with disabilities were separated from the other students?
Yes, they were learning in a separate classroom. We brought in a cartoon artist, and the goal that they were working on with the teacher was on sequencing skills in writing. And the students had language-based learning disabilities, so reading and writing were big barriers to them. And the teaching artist who came in started to explore the sequencing and storytelling through visual arts. So the students were creating cartoons, they were creating their own characters, and creating stories that had beginning, middles, and ends visually. Then they were translating those stories into writing, and we heard from the teacher that the kids just wouldn't stop writing. They were so engaged and so excited about the stories that they had created that were meaningful to them, that the writing came naturally.
Now that's kind of, there might be people watching this right now saying, real writing, that's grammar and phonics, and everything else is just touchy-feely. So, I mean, how important is that to literacy?
Sure. Well, I think nobody would disagree that grammar and all of that is very important, and that's certainly something that schools should definitely be focusing on. I think our approach is coming in and seeing what is the real point in writing something. Is it about telling a story? Is it about communicating? Is it about sharing something about yourself? And that's what this residency focused on. And we saw how everything else, all the grammar, all the correct everything else just came out of that. Because the students were engaged.
Organizing thoughts, right?
Yes, right. And they were able to see that sequence visually. The beginning was there, and the middle was there, and then the end was there. And so the writing came as a
How do you know these things work? Does anybody look at scores or anything else that show that, like, my gosh, these kids are doing better now?
There are tests that show, studies that show that our approach, we've seen plenty of studies that show, that say, music will make you better at math. We don't tend to look at it that way. We see it more as what are ways in which the arts can engage you and open new lenses to the curriculum. I think the arts are wonderful teachers. They come in many different shapes and forms. So they're visual. You have music. You have movement, and they're able to get to students in a variety of ways, and also get them to show what they know in a variety of ways. It's difficult to show that in test scores sometimes because there are many variables to why those test scores could have gone up. But we definitely see qualitative results in the work.
We've also seen recently under the superintendent in Boston, Cal Johnson, more attention to expanding access to the arts for more students of all kinds, and there's been more support from that even from outside the system. But this is also a difficult time for schools in general as far as the budget. What about the future of what you're doing?
That's a really good question. We actually, looking back a few years ago, our work started to be compromised because teachers were not able to or willing to give us their literacy period to do a music residency just because they didn't have the time to cover that material. When we came in and started to say, we're not going to take over your literacy period to do music, we're going to take over your literacy period to work on literacy goals through music. And I think very quickly we started to see, and I think the teachers started to see very good results as to how the kids were learning and how they were able to demonstrate what they were doing. As you said, the superintendent in the Boston Public Schools was very supportive of this. There's a huge grant fund out right now, the Boston Arts Expansion Fund, that is supporting this work in the schools.
I want to ask you about one other element that you mentioned a little earlier. This is not just about students performing as individuals, but working together as groups. Why is that so important?
Well, I think that in this particular case through the arts, so many of the students' abilities are revealed through the arts. Maybe some students who are failing in school because of other barriers, like I mentioned earlier, text or whatever it is, they're maybe sitting in the back going like this, feeling like they can't contribute anything, that they can't learn. Suddenly, some of their other abilities are exposed, and they feel like they're part of a group, they feel like they're part of a learning community, people are celebrating each other's successes, and that, I think, has a huge impact on the school culture and the school community.
Thank you very much for being with us.
Thank you.
Nicole Agois Hurel.